It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can find a link to my work at emailrevealer.com. You can also get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator, at emailrevealer.com. Adoption Investigations, locates, asset searches, emailrevealer.com. Show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea. And as you know, this tea has changed my life for the better. Okay, I want to point out, I've been working out like crazy. I went for before they closed the pool, I swam 100 laps, but I did just went the other day, swam 25 laps. Little kink in my exercise program here. I've been losing weight. I've been great digestion, great complexion with this Get the Tea Life Change tea. But I injured my ear, my inner eardrum. Okay. And so I had to take a bunch of antihistamines and NyQuil and stuff like that all day yesterday. My hearing is back. I can hear again now. It's a miracle, thank God. But I'll be back in the pool, back working out, and I'll be updating on my progress. But once again, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com. This stuff will help you lose weight. It'll help you get back in shape. You get up in the morning, drink a glass of this tea. You don't need any coffee. LifeChangeTea.com. We have a returning guest with us, Hans Utter. And his website is hansutter.com. His last name is spelled Utter. He has a radio show now, too, on Steampunk, STEEMPUNK, on Sunday nights, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to be inviting him over. We invited him to come on and broadcast a show on awakeradio.us, so keep an eye out for that. Hans, are you there?
I am, Ed. It's great to be back with you, and it's been quite a long time. And I'm sure that your work has also progressed, both in your investigational work, and it sounds like your health interest as well. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when we ended the show last time, we said, okay, we got to do another show right away. Okay, we said, let's come back. We'll do another show about the Process Church and all this kind of stuff like that. And here it is 4 years later, and we're just finally getting around to it. You just got back from India. What's going on over there?
Well, I was there for about 2 weeks, and I had some kind of personal matters, issues to take care of or be involved with. And then I actually went on a 8-day trek in Sikkim, which is a very interesting, it was a Buddhist kingdom that became part of India in the late 60s, so they weren't invaded by the Chinese. But it was pretty cool. So I was up there, and I did a few shows and stuff, but primarily it was, participating in things that I had to do and all that. It was great. It was nice to come back, and being such a short trip, it really created a nice little fracture of my normal routine. So I'm back here. Unfortunately, I'm traveling all across the States right upon my return. So, but it was great, and always gives, a different perspective on things, especially since a lot of the American news and media, I'm basically completely, not connected with it at all over there. So it's nice to come back and see everything that's happened. And yeah.
Why don't you remind the audience, who is Hans Utter?
Well, my background, I have a PhD in ethnomusicology. I've done a lot of research in various cultures, primarily Asia, the Indian subcontinent, Central Asia, etc. But I think around 2015, I started doing shows on music and mind control. I've always had an interest in, philosophical issues and things like that. But so this is, in a certain, where you could say it's a sideline. I'm still primarily a professional musician as well as a writer and instructor. But my main focal point is what gave me, I think, a somewhat unique perspective is I just simply went ahead and applied my research model to American culture, in a way that I was able to, draw on a lot of connections with everything from industry to psychology.
Now, on Sunday nights, your show, Eyes Wide Open, what would we find there?
Well, we have a wide variety of different guests and different topics. The subtitle of the show is Compassionate Conspiracy. So it's meaning that we're looking at a lot of these issues that are going around, everything from mind control to, cultural disruption, et cetera, but also applying ways to find a grounding within yourself, within your community, and things like that. So it's sort of a positive spin as well. So it's pretty interesting. And I have a kind of a regular co-host who's actually works with like corporations as a psychologist, but she's very much into these issues. And we bring on a lot of different people, and sometimes I'll just talk about music or things like that. But I try to kind of keep it interesting and have various segments on different issues. And so far, it's actually proven to be quite successful. So I look forward to your offer, Ed, to be part of the Awake Radio Network, and I would urge listeners to the Opera Report to check it out on Sunday.
And you have some new albums out as well?
Yeah, that's correct. I've got a number of new albums, and those are available off my website. And I do have another website, which I do use occasionally, which is, in fact, I'm going to start updating it right now, but it's called mindcontrolmusic.wordpress.com. And so the albums I have are available, and I actually have a number of books that are be coming out shortly. I have one book in press, which is called Jimi Hendrix and Philosophy, published by the Open Court Press. And again, that's, I guess, Ed, you mentioned you couldn't find my other book on Amazon. So that's through the publisher. I'm happy to, I do have copies they gave me, so I can always send someone a copy, but I think you should be able to locate that book as well.
And you can find that at hansutter.com, UTTER.com. Well, Hans, I originally contacted you because I had a listener who's fascinated by this phenomenon, Poppy, or That's Poppy. That's a YouTube sensation. Are you familiar with this?
I am. Excuse me. I was familiar with it, and since you sent me the request, I've done a lot more research into it. But yeah, it's That Poppy or Poppy, and there's a lot of different, levels and layers to look at this particular internet icon or pop phenomenon, because there's a lot of things going on, actually. And so, Ed, if you want to, give a little background based on your standpoint, I'm happy to dive in at any point and go through it. I would like to give kind of a background, understand this whole thing, because they don't understand hypnosis, the use of hypnosis, the elements of, various mind control programs, but also the occult grounding or aspects of those. Poppy doesn't really particularly have that much resonance, but as a manifestation of what's going on right now, I think that this Poppy is quite important. And we can just start by, how about the name Poppy, right? That's interesting starting off point right there.
So what do you make of that?
Well, Poppy, of course, is connected with the opium poppy, and Poppy also has the, use in various types of magical or occult rituals. And Poppy is associated with hypnosis and thanatos, which is actually hypnosis and death, which are these particular kind of rituals that are done sort of in, witchcraft type of things. And so and we'll get into that in much more detail later, but there's quite a lot of not only occultic elements, but the secondary factor is sort of a mockery of that, right? So it's something so obvious, it's done in a way you can say, oh, that's just a joke. This is a person just trying to capitalize on current interest in, the proliferation of occult symbolism in music. And so there's sort of a tongue-in-cheek or a quote-unquote postmodern aspect to Poppy as well, which is also quite interesting. But that's, I think, where we get to the crux of the issue, which is the disarming of the awareness, at the same time sort of making fun of or mocking the research done on these things, or people that, think about Illuminati, et cetera. And then the fact is that there's a lot going on in terms of what is actually being done in these videos, just as processes. Like you look at the video, the sound, the imagery. What is that actually doing to someone who watches that? So I think all of these factors are really important to look at.
Okay, fascinating. Now for people that aren't familiar with this whole Poppy sensation, she's basically almost like a Barbie doll, robotic in many ways. Some people even suspected in the beginning that it was some kind of animation. Because she's so incredibly robotic and hypnotic in her motions, and one of her videos just repeats over and over, I'm Poppy, I'm Poppy, I'm Poppy, all in different kinds of tones. And her real name is Mariah Pieria, and she hooked up with this guy named Titanic Sinclair. His real name is Corey Michael Mixter. And before he was hooked up with Poppy, before he found Poppy and made him his puppet, he had another girl, Mars Argo, who now is just suing Sinclair, claiming that this is her whole gig, and she has a copyright in this whole gig and this whole act. But if you look it up on YouTube, how many videos? Like hundreds of them by now, right?
Well, I mean, what the amazing thing is that the amount of views that these videos have.
Right.
We're looking at so 45 million, 55 million, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, so Poppy is, this internet phenomena that really is based on this kind of derealization principle, meaning that is she real or not? You'll see in a lot of her videos, you have these, people dressed in these sort of white bodysuits that completely cover their face, and the white background, which is this very much, linked to this identity. Is she real? Is she not? And go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything. I was nodding my head actually as you were talking.
So. And at the same time, this is like this phenomena. Well, how did this come about? And you have, as you mentioned, these videos, right? For example, I am Poppy, I'm Poppy. And that is, and it goes on for quite a while, right? And so this identification, as well as the sort of blank faces of these, white humanoid figures that dance around in most of her videos, it is part of, what you could describe as a direct form of hypnotic induction, but it's done so blatantly. And that's why other, people have posited that this is sort of a mockery of the whole, whatever you want to call it, occult, Babylonian mystery religion elements that are absolutely proliferating in music videos right now, really to an extreme point. And again, I think contextually, to understand Poppy, I think we have to go back and see what this represents in terms of not only the idea of this internet sensation being possibly not even a real human being, which connects to transhumanism, but as well as the, really deliberate use of repetitive language. She has one video, I'm Poppy, you must follow me, things like that. I mean, there's just so much of this stuff on there in all of her videos. But then the question is, why? And the question is, well, why is someone doing this? But the main question is, why is this so popular? What created this? And then you have this backstory of the Titanic Sinclair, which is just a great name, right? Wonderful, to choose a name instead of saying like, Rock Johnny or something like that, Titanic Sinclair. So Ed, if you want to just say a little more background on her, I'll go ahead and then I'll kind of dive into the articulation of the position and the importance of this, which again, just in understanding this as a singular phenomena is not quite as interesting as looking at the connection of this to much larger scale developments and processes, especially in that of hypnosis, language, word association, NLP, et cetera.
Well, it would appear that Titanic Sinclair is heavily influenced by Andy Warhol in many ways. And I think that's one other reason why so many people I've talked to about this say, oh, it's performance art, it's harmless. But there's a lot in here that isn't harmless. Like one of her most recent videos is Pray to Poppy, I think it is, or Pray to Poppy, or Pray with Poppy.
And she has a link is like Poppy Church, right? Poppy period church is like her one of these addresses you connect with her. So this idea of sort of creating a pseudo religion or creating a religious connection is certainly there.
Well, I know also too that if you could order that book, the book and the Poppy, I think it came with a little ring or a device or something too as well. In a little package you could order from her that had actual prayers to Poppy, to pray to Poppy. But in this latest video about praying with Poppy, she says, forgive yourself your sins, which is blasphemous. Many Christians would find that blasphemy, and that we could forgive our own sins, but the blood of atonement of Christ, our sins are forgiven. And it's blasphemy to many people. So fascinating, but give us some of the background, like what you think created this whole phenomenon.
Yeah. And before I do that, let's look at the video of her reading the Bible for 49 minutes. Have you seen that?
No, I have not. No.
And this is very interesting because she's reading the Bible but in a very bizarre way, stumbling over words, the camera's right on her, but notice 4-9 numerology is it's a 13. And it's done in such a way. It's not, it is a sort of a mockery of the scripture, so to speak, but it's also, just as one of these examples of what she's doing. And so, check out that, when you take one of these breaks, look up that video of Poppy reading the Bible. But let me go ahead and just jump into the background of this so this makes more sense.
Okay.
Now, and let's say this as a caveat at the beginning, is that Poppy is, on one level, is what could be described as a postmodern, Andy Warhol-esque phenomena, right? It's something it's mocking certain levels. It seems constructed and created. And, there are a lot of different symbolic and ritualistic images, even in the lyrics as well, that are very much connected with the sort of awakening to the massive level of occult symbolism that's going on in videos. But let's go back to, I would say, the initial use of hypnotic induction in music, and especially for children, right? So there's a song, maybe you could play it, but it's called "I'm a Little Puppet." Right. And this is what's known as sleep time or sleepy time music, which was played for children like, at daycare and things like that. And the song "I'm a Little Puppet" is actually a trance inducing and hypnotic program, which was deployed on children during their, the nap time in a daycare, in the 1950s. And so this is what Poppy is in a very interesting way, referencing, because even the name Poppy is this idea of sleep. Her first album or her first project with the YouTube project was Music to Sleep To 3:36. So let's keep that in mind, this idea of going to sleep, of falling asleep in the poppy fields, right? And the idea that you can ignore or think that you have an inoculation, or this is a humorous look at various types of, we could say occult stuff. And then even, it sort of pokes fun at the people that are saying, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on in popular music, especially popular music video culture, especially as it relates to the youth, right? We're talking about very young, impressionable people that are connected with. But so let's just keep this idea of sleep time music in mind. And then and this song, I mean, really, when I looked into Poppy, what I thought about was this song, again, I'm a Little Puppet, which is an example of, the children were just in a nice, lying down in kindergarten or however they're 4 or 5 years old. And then this music is being played, and it has an absolute effect, even though it is the most innocuous thing. And that's kind of what Poppy has to offer. But just to start out with, so Ed, what would you say by hypnosis? What do you understand by the term hypnotic or hypnosis?
Well, why don't we get back? We'll get into hypnosis when we come back from this commercial break. We're with Hans Utter, and we're talking about Poppy, or that Poppy, that you could find if you just go to YouTube and just Google Poppy. You'll be shocked at how many hits and stuff like this. It's a phenomenon. Coming out with an album. She did even a tour, too, for her album with this Titanic Sinclair. We'll be right back after these messages with Hans Utter about Poppy, hansutter.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also awakeradio.us.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the Tea, your best defense.
You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing you narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Proud Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Hans Utter from hansutter.com, and we're talking about Poppy. Now, we left off, and you were asking me about hypnosis. I've been hypnotized, you know. How do you feel about hypnosis just as a general, quit smoking, for more confidence, and different things like that? What is your opinion on just hypnosis in general?
Well, hypnosis is really connected with kind of the basic functioning of the human mind in terms of what we call habit patterns or addictions or conditioned reflexes and responses, right? So hypnosis is a way to access and write or technically rewrite patterns. And in fact, it's really the hypnotic induction, so-called, is really a major sort of process in the media, everything from television, to even phenomena like Poppy is, a great example of the induction of hypnosis. So in terms of hypnosis, I mean, I think that, if, in terms of reconditioning and things like that, if either you can do it yourself or there's someone you can actually trust that's not going to, do something bad to you, then, it certainly has a value, especially since the hypnotic induction process is so integrated in modern culture. So to be able to rewrite some of those things is beneficial.
Right. Just general advertising is repetition. And in many ways, it's hypnotic, these little jingles and stuff. Am I correct?
No, absolutely. I mean, and hypnosis, we understand that is, first of all, that, we have our, various parts of our mind, that function, and one of them being the frontal cortex, which is sort of our reason, our way of perceiving and, choosing what to do or not to do and being able to analyze and things like that. And so hypnosis is kind of based on shutting that down and, potentially strengthening your ability, but also it's really based on allowing a type of, what do you say, a sort of a controlled state where one is relaxed or their defenses are down, so to speak, in which case things can actually be written, into the mind, which then translate into the body. And this is the thing, is that, our minds and our bodies, we have our central nervous system. And so every type of sensory impression is being somehow ascertained, being linked, or, into certain types of patterns and things like that. And that's how hypnotic suggestion, or kind of conditioned response to stimuli, occurs. And so this, in every sensory modality, we could say sight, sound, hearing, well, I said sound already, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, all these elements can form what we call stimulus patterns, right? So especially with the visual aspect going on, and the auditory, et cetera, these create much more deep-seated types of hypnotic response patterns. And you mentioned the repetition, and the repetition is a function once the sort of trance is achieved, or the state of sort of hypnotic induction. And by induction, I mean that the receptivity to these types of commands or mental, physical structures are sort of embedded, then, the more those are repeated, the stronger they become. And what's interesting is that when there's a lot of stress or tension, when there's fear and things like that, these patterns will just automatically operate. So you can tie that into the overall sort of cultural fear that we live in.
That's like trauma-based mind control. So if you experience a trauma, then these things will automatically kick in.
Yeah, well, they can, exactly. And so a trauma-based pattern, right? Once that stress is activated, then these patterns will just operate without any conscious control or volition, right? And that's very important. So, really, you have this basic factor. Let's just look at, we say like addiction or something like that, right? So in a sense, say you start drinking Diet Coke, it's all those harmful chemicals in there, but you become addicted to it. Now, that addictive pattern has a basis in some type of, your own perception of yourself. Like, say, I'm using diet soft drinks, with aspartame as an example of, to me, I could never stomach even a sip of that, but I know people that are absolutely addicted to them, right? So here's what you have is a triggering of a state through whether sound, whether photic sort of driving, which is a type of driving where you have flashing images coming at certain points, which can also induce a trance state, so to speak, or whatever that is. And then you have a emotional response, which is I'm fat. And then you see a video about Diet Coke, and then you start drinking it. And even though it's a harmful chemical, you become addicted to it, and it becomes an ingrained pattern or an ingrained habitual response. And so that this particular thing, like a stress situation, and like you look in the mirror, you can't get into the dress or your suit. I mean, I don't know. I've never really cared if I'm fat or not, but unless my wife yells at me. But the fact is that, there's a stress response, and it could be any kind of stress response. It could be linked to that conditioned hypnotic response pattern, right? So, it could be like, I just got my boss just called me and I'm getting a decrease in my salary. Okay, I'm going to drink a Diet Coke. The actual initial stimuli was implanted in the mind through advertising. It's been reinforced, but now it's associated with a substance, which is the toxic diet soft drink. And then it just becomes a self-reinforcing loop. And then when you try to get out of that hypnotic pattern, again, when stress, occurs, and it will trigger that behavior. And of course, I mean, if you look at trauma-based mind control, I mean, what I get, we get deeper into this. This is kind of what I'm saying. And that poppy represents a kind of a late phase of the induction of trauma-based mind control on an entire population, or at least on certain demographics or segments of the population. And that's what makes, this especially interesting. But I think the trauma-based mind control, being understood that it's not just simply one type of behavior. It doesn't mean I was raped, so every time I see a man, I'm going to go run and hide in the bushes. That type of traumatic programming can access all different types of conditioned hypnotic response patterns.
Oh, okay, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I'm fascinated by this, and I got to ask you the question. Because I live here in Las Vegas, right? And we just recently went through that huge October 1st shooting at the Mandalay Bay. So as soon as I lived through that, and everyone around me was going through trauma, I saw it. People I go to church with, people I see at the bank, people my daughter goes to school with, we were all traumatized by this huge event. But what I noticed was the more further away you got from it, people on Facebook and friends of mine around the world listen to the show and stuff like that, became obsessed with the topic and were obsessively watching the YouTube videos and regurgitating rumor and stuff like that, based on, I believe it was triggered by the trauma that they experienced. Do you have an opinion on that one? What do you think was going on with that?
Well, absolutely. And I think, just a second, can you hear me? I may be a little softer now. I changed my microphone setting.
Okay, you sound good.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly, that's a perfect exemplification of what I'm talking about. And what's happened is that the level of social control or sociological conditioning or understanding extends to these types of procedures. And so, yeah, exactly. I mean, this, and Poppy, again, as I mentioned, the level of this occult initiatory practices that are occurring in popular music is really reached an extreme point. I mean, to the point where I don't even bother really to look at the latest stuff, because it's gotten so obvious, but at the same time, it's gotten so much more powerful in the way that it's no longer veiled, right? There's no veiling.
Right.
It's really a direct thing. And let me not jump ahead. So going back to the Las Vegas. So look at that thing. You have it. It's set up with so many different trap doors, right? I mean, look at even the entire story, and every level is undercut by another type of fact, or the police scanner reports and this and that. And then it really, you have a trauma, but then you really have a floating trauma. Then you have a traumatic response, which becomes, as you mentioned, this sort of obsession about gathering information on it.
Right.
And all these things are interlocked. And then you also have the development of these, these people that are these internet phenomena, it looks like some guy in his car holding his cell phone up, talking about the shooting and this and that. But who are these people? And so you also have a level of creating this kind of faux grassroots and this and that. And at the same time, you have an interjection of all these different ritualistic, numerological, symbolic elements into the shooting. And I'm not, I'll say it straight off, I assume you get in this whole debate, were people killed? Is it just purely a visual phenomena? And that becomes another sort of divisive point, is that, did people die? Was it fake? I mean, as far as I know, for people that live in Las Vegas, I mean, it was an actual event on that level, but then so many of these other levels are smoke screens. And as you said, the entire event becomes a process where the trauma is there, and then what's going on is the induction process, so to speak, is occurring on parallel levels and in multiple pathways, right? So I'll stop there and let you respond.
Yeah, and it almost got to the point where people became so obsessed, it was almost as if they were masturbating in the blood. They were rolling around in the victim's blood, masturbating over this, like in some kind of frenzy. obsession with the topic. You know, people that I respected and I cared about just suddenly just became insanely obsessed with this stuff. And I watched it firsthand here close up. And I think another thing, too, that kind of detached me from it and gave me a different perspective is I've given up meat since the last time we've met. I'm total vegan now, and no meat at all. So that whole idea of flesh and blood, is totally, it disgusts me now. When you detox from that, you're a vegetarian, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about then, right? like once you're detached from you're detoxed from all that meat and flesh and blood and stuff like that, your perception's different. And it just seems like there was this fascination with the blood and the gore and the false narratives. And
yeah, and exactly. And that's what I want to, that's such a great thing to bring up because in a certain way, Poppy is exactly like that.
Right.
Obviously not in scope or whatever, but what you have on one level is something that's obviously, utilizing these weird techniques and this and that. And then there's multiple backstories. There's a current lawsuit against Titanic Sinclair and this and that, as you mentioned. And so all this other stuff is going on. But, as you get into it, you're also propelling the trauma, so to speak, and creating this sort of unconscious response. And the idea, you said people rolling around and masturbating in blood, that's the exact basis of operant conditioning or these types of hypnotic conditional patterns. In terms of those psychologists who develop them to apply to mass society, is that you have the inhibitory and the excitatory reflex, right? Which is you inhibit your behavior or you suppress a type of behavior or a sensory perception, or you're excited and gravitated towards it. And once you get those two forces, these two, major foundational sort of, I'd say psychophysiological, emotional processes, whatever, engaged, then that's how you actually can create a type of insanity through that, because you have these clashing things that are going on. But then the response to that is a breakdown, and it's almost a return to kind of a primitive state of functioning.
You're making me nervous, man. This is like this is that. Now, is there any chance? Okay. Because, now not to move back to Poppy, is there any chance it's just performance art and just by accident that all this is going on, or is there's definite evil design behind what's going on here?
That's a good question. You
know what? Let's take a commercial break, and I'll give you some time to think about it, and we'll come back. We'll get into that. Is it possible that it's by accident? It's just a pop art, or is it's impossible that it's not intelligent design behind this this hypnotic and this occult influence here in this performance art? We'll be right back after these messages with more of Hans Utter. And I'm really glad I got you on this topic here, man. I think you're the perfect guest to have on this topic here to get into different areas with it. And now a word from our sponsors.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find the link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also awakeradio.us.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap! I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you can get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. The other thing, though, too, is if you fall asleep while watching these videos, especially if it's on a playlist, right? And then that's more, you're more susceptible then, right, to being implanted in your mind.
Well, yeah, that's the sleep, the idea of the sleep. That's what I start out with, is poppy is the drug of sleep, right? So you putting you to sleep, and then we can go to this, use of like Masonic hand symbols, and this revelation of the method where, hey, we're showing this to you right in your face, but it's being done ironically, and so therefore you're doubly bound, so to speak. And this gets into sort of deeper levels, which I think are at work now, besides, say, the merely scientific, which sort of cross over into the, we describe as sort of the occult dimensions of this.
Okay, that's a good question then. Do you believe that these hand symbols and these images, do you believe that they possess power on their own, even if you're not aware of what it is?
Well, I mean, this is the whole point of symbolism, right? I mean, symbols for, the entirety of the human experience, the human existence of the human race as sort of a functional animal, is that symbols have had incredible potency and power, because symbols are like links, right, between the imagination and the emotions and the psychological or spiritual dimensions of the human being. And so some symbols are very powerful. And I think that the neglect of the potency of symbols and the symbolic language and how it actually works is is, a major facet of why a lot of this stuff is being done. And let me just add, though, on the other hand, because of the level of ignorance, by becoming aware of this, then, the levels are no longer as powerful. I mean, I don't per se, I'm not going to say like a Masonic hand sign. Does that mean anything per se or not? Not necessarily, but there are certain types of symbols, right? If you look at sigils, for the sigils, right? And there's a lot of sigil magic in what Poppy is doing, right? So in terms of witchcraft, there's a lot of witchcraft stuff going on sort of behind all that. If you look at some of these sigils, I mean, if you look at them long enough, they will start to sort of may have some type of effect on you, right? And I can go through the scientific basis of that. But I mean, symbols are these, we're going to call these abstract representations of things, or on whatever level you want to see them, and have been proven through scientific study as well as, say, religious practice to have incredible potency, over thousands of years. So I think that, I mean, yes, an effect. Again, you look at repetition, the cumulative effect, but I think that to disregard the possibility of these things having an effect on you is to, number two, bypassing your critical faculties, right? That's part of the whole hypnotic process. Right. You think, oh, this is nothing. Okay. So I think it is important to, be aware of that. Yes, these things are there and they are potent.
Well, give me some examples of Poppy doing witchcraft or sigils in her presentations.
Well, if we go to this, I'm a low life, right? So first of all, in all of her videos, you have this solid white background. Okay. Right? You have this white background. And the white background or a white room is very, it's like a central feature in various types of occult possession rituals. Actually, this solid white room, you have the Umbanda ritual connected with voodoo, and you also have the sort of spirit room that, people that are summoning various types of occult entities will go towards, right? So the whole fact of these white rooms, which are predominant in most of her videos, is very interesting. So, and I get, so we can go, I can just go frame by frame. I mean, what you have is the opening scene in this video, or not the opening scene, but okay, I'm going to go ahead and I don't have a frame by frame breakdown, but you even have, so we open up here with this heart, you have her in the Baphomet pose, and you have the I don't know if you're watching this, you have these monkeys and you have the white faced guys. So all these, if you draw lines between them, there's, there's sigil, there's several, not only the overt occult symbolism, but sort of the covert occult symbolism of these lines, right? So your eye is going to draw a line between these candle arcs and this and that. So there's what I describe as sort of a sigil. Now, someone could say, well, you're just looking at these lines and this and that doesn't mean anything. Well, I can, if you want me to send you a photo of that being superimposed on that, I'm certainly happy to. But there's a lot of these weird sort of geometric patterns that she does, which are, again, and I'm not going to say that this is like empirical standalone evidence, but it's, it's certainly there I've caught a number of these different things. And then if you go to the low life video at 3 minutes and 20, even the timings of these things are numerologically related, right? You look at, the different times and the different frames. You have the Satan character. Again, I'm talking about the low life video, which people aren't watching, but, all this stuff is there. So it's a lot more low key though than say, the latest Beyonce or Britney Spears video, right? It's a lot more low key, but yet the invocatory aspects along with the timing in the seconds of the videos, you can directly overlay specific sort of sigils, which people are aware of sigils. They're just they're just kind of various lines and circles and squiggly lines and things like that are used as visual elements in invocation of sort of demonic or spirit entities. You can see a lot of that, say John Dee or Aleister Crowley, things like that. So, if you know, et cetera. But so then again, I'll put that as sort of on the speculative plane. But there's, every frame you're going to find all kinds of different things. If you want to put yourself through that. But so, but it's definitely there's definitely there. We have the bones sitting at the table with the human bones and the skull with the brain cut out, and the white milk, which is the witch's bath. Right, so the witch takes a bath in this white fluid substance which contains milk, et cetera, et cetera. So these elements are there. Are they acts? I mean, I don't think that the detail that's provided that they're done spontaneously, right? It's not just some spontaneous artistic production. Now, whether or not that's just done for the researchers like me to kind of go off on a tangent with or not, I don't know, but that's what I want to state is that some of these things are being portrayed and are being connected through these videos.
What do we know about Titanic Sinclair's background? Does he have this kind of background in the occult, family background or anything like that? Do we know?
Well, that's the whole thing. These people, I don't know anything about this particular person. I mean, there's whatever I can find online, right? So right. We don't really know if they're real or what their background is. I mean, unfortunately that would be interesting to find out, because I think that behind these people, I think that's where the crux of the matter lies in terms of ascertaining that. But the thing is, for all it could be, this whole thing could be just a put on, right? These could be just, the whole, even the drama, insipid, basic drama, this happened over just a couple of years. It's not like it's gone over like a decade, right? So this whole thing has taken place in pretty short span of time in terms of the backstory and then the other singer and this and that. I would suspect, I wouldn't necessarily say Titanic Sinclair. My personal, I would say my intuition or speculative thing, I think that there is someone behind that. I'm not necessarily that this person is the ringleader per se of whatever's going on here.
This might be another good time to take a good break and take a little commercial break with Hans Utter. And we're getting into levels of discussing Poppy that I was even beyond what I was hoping for. HansUtter.com, HansUtter.com. You can catch his radio show on Steampunk Sunday evenings, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 8 to 10 on Eastern Time. Many, many albums for sale on his website there, and also his book you can find. We'll be right back with more of Hans Utter after these messages.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com. Every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Hans Utter from hansutter.com. You can check out his radio show on Steampunk on Sunday nights, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, too, on Awake Radio soon to come. So, Hans, what do you think? Is it possible that this could just be performance art and just be a coincidence that she's using all this hypnosis and all these repetitive mind control techniques?
Well, yeah, I guess it's possible. However, we have to look at the fact that it's like like the Las Vegas shooting where you don't know, did it happen? Is it not happening? Is it this? Is that? At the same time, you have to look at the different perceptions. Okay, this is entertainment. I mean, you can just look at the numbers of views. It looks like it's all like numerology. I'm just looking at, am I okay? 7,423,985 views. And the one song in particular, which has sort of the largest amount of occult symbolism, including her sitting at a table with Satan with a skull on the table and starting out with, using the Baphomet hand signs right at the beginning of the video, et cetera, et cetera. That one, has 42,651,636 views. That's the same amount of views. I've watched that a couple times. Should have gone up at least by 4. I hate to admit it, I watched it 4 times, but I have, and I just brought it up again, same number. So you have this thing of this popularity. You have this idea that it's possibly this postmodern art, which I'm sure your audience is familiar with postmodernity, but one of the things of postmodernism is recycling the past, sort of an ironic look at culture creation, the creation of illusory types of, multi-layer productions as a performance artist, right? So that's that. And I would say certainly, one level, Poppy is that. Absolutely. However, the other side of it is that there is such an array of things being deployed, so to speak, in this particular production. One of them being, if you look at the source code of the website, there's a giant, Illuminati pyramid literally in the source code of the website, which is, it's in there, it's programmed in there. And so this is, it looks like a joke kind of within a joke now, but we have to segment demographic audiences. There must be, I don't know who is a Poppy fan. It's, if it's ironic, it's not that interesting that I don't think it would get, that many, millions of views. But is there like a lot of young kids listening to it? And then there's the sort of the quote unquote conspiracy or truth community that's looking into it and this and that. So, you have to look at who's relating to it, who is connecting with it. But, beyond that is that what's actually going on, what imagery, what symbolic imagery is being deployed, what types of actual hypnotic practice are engaged. I think that's where we get to a potential crux of the matter, right? Just as a phenomenon. But what's actually happening when you watch this stuff? What is actually doing to you or potentially doing to you? Just not, going into the occult aspect or the demonic aspect, which is there a lot. There's all kinds of stuff there, which we'll get into. But what's actually being done with these types of hypnotic, suggestatory things that are going on when you're doubly disarmed, right? Okay, this is an ironic mockery of this kind of thing. And so I can just watch it and, it's just making fun of it. But then it becomes doubly powerful, right? Because that's the, part of the hypnotic process.
Is there any way to be so detached that you can watch these videos and not be affected by it? So critically viewing them just for investigative purposes and not be affected by the repetition?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it is something that if you're aware of what's going on, you're going to have a reaction to it if you're conscious, right? So to speak. So you might even feel kind of nauseous or just want to turn it off. But, I think the awareness is, you can absolutely, you have to look into this stuff. Because if you don't gain an understanding of it, it will not, it will not be exposed. And then the underlying agendas will remain dormant, right? So it requires looking into it. But no, I think as soon as you're aware of that, the hypnotic process. But let me just clarify that a little bit. In terms of the basic, process of hypnosis, there's various stages, but this is, I think, from the Australian Society of Hypnotherapists. But I think I like this sort of this stage breakdown because it's very clear. The first one is absorb attention. So your attention is drawn to it. Your attention is absorbed in this, whatever it is, right? You may be watching a football game. You may be whatever, but your attention is absorbed in it. You're no longer really focused on your surroundings, and that if you look at hypnosis, you have the little watch, like
right.
The pendulum, look into my eyes. And then the second one is bypass critical faculties. So you're bypassing the critical, rational faculties, which is, I mentioned the central cortex or your rational judgment. And let me just add a little footnote to that. When I mentioned that if you see something as just being a joke, right, it's just a postmodern exercise, then what's that done? Oh, you've just bypassed your critical faculties, right? Because you're just going to think it's some
harmless. You think it's harmless, right?
Yep. And then number 3 is activate unconscious response, which means then you start to work on the inside of that person's mind without their being aware of it, because they're no longer interfering with it because their attention is focused, whether it's on the mass shooting or whether it's on the football game or whether it's on Poppy's repetition of her name, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is lead unconscious to a desired outcome, which is really enter the hypnotic programming and lock it into the person's mind. And again, once that's done and it's done properly, then then the repetition, the process of repetition will reinforce that suggestion, right? So the suggestion, if it's implanted properly, it can be reinforced without going through that whole sequence of, inducing a hypnotic state, right? So that's where I think, it becomes interesting. And then it shows that the access or the application of these things are not simply just random.
Okay, let's take a little commercial break, and we'll be back right after these messages.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find the link to Subash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also awakeradio.us.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Hans Utter. HansUtter.com is his website. And we're talking about the phenomenon poppy, or that poppy you can find on YouTube mostly, I guess. Now, Hans, have we seen any endorsement of Poppy and her black magic, by other well-known occultists kind of pointing toward her or giving her an endorsement? Or?
Well, the whole thing about, I think, Poppy is that, the whole thing is very, very thin, right? There's not a lot, right? This Corey Michael mixture, which also seems like, it almost seems like another assumed name, or the original Poppy with, his previous group. Her real name is Brittany Sheets, which is interesting, Brittany Sheets, and that absolutely could be her real name, and I'm no way implying that, but there's a very light footprint of these people prior to this sudden explosion of fame. And there are, there's certainly some videos, I haven't, fortunately, there's a lot of stuff out there, and half the time it's not really that relevant, and some stuff maybe, there's a lot of videos put out about her and this kind of thing, saying this is a cult, or saying she's not, maybe she's controlled, she's a mind control puppet, she's this, she's that. But, in terms of actual facts and in terms of details on these people, they're pretty sparse. From the internet, right? You can look me up or whatever. You find at least something that is, that you find sort of a track record of an actual person, right? Usually you can, unless they've had that sort of scrubbed from the internet. So in terms of endorsements, there's a lot of people that say it's great. And, again, it's not on the level of like, this is a great occult thing. No, absolutely not. It's more just like, this is a wonderful, creative, postmodern performance art thing, or she's really cute, or this and that. And I think, again, I don't want to go into the speculatory realm too far in terms of not having a factual basis. But I think at one level, you could say that's telling as well, because the communication of these things within this particular package is really representational of the stage we sort of reached as a culture in general. And the fact is that these you describe as the hypnotic induction of the popular culture, which, and I can go into great detail. We can look at Pavlov, the use of, metronomic time, use of metronomes, different types of beats. We can look at the sort of the people that really developed this in terms of scientific work, in the 20th century, at least. And primarily these guys were all, based out of Russia. We have A.R. Luria, and a lot of, work with children, et cetera, et cetera. And I just give you another example, just A.R. Luria. There's something called mentasis or nerve jamming, right? Which is mentasis is death of the mind in terms of the real mental. You're no longer able to really function. You become almost like a robotic entity, whether or not you're aware of it, right? Which means it doesn't necessarily mean that your brain is gone. It means that you're so much controlled by these sort of hypnotic suggestion patterns, or whatever, that you're basically brain dead or completely just a robot responding to circumstances, kind of just like Poppy. But anyways, the four aspects for conditioning children, which is from Luria, is putting children under severe nervous tension. So you create a type of nervous tension or stress. And then the second one is creating artificial degrees of neurosis. Number 3, interfering with the normal maturation of the nerve reasoning part, while the subcortical is the impulsive, uncontrolled section, destroying the normal inhibitory mechanism of the cerebral cortex, and hypnotic induction inducing sleep. So we're going back to the 30s, but that's why I said that I find that the Poppy phenomena is because of the fact that it's sort of innocuous and yet it's edgy, it's whatever, but there's actual hypnotic suggestion programming going on in a very blatant level. Example I mentioned reading the Bible. You have the I'm Poppy thing. You have a variety for other things she's done. And again, I mean, it's possible. I mean, who are these people, right? I mean, there's also another narrative. I mean, we have the constructed narratives. I mean, even the whole lawsuit and this whole thing could be a completely artificial thing. It may be real, but it's such a light footprint in terms of their sudden, manifestation is with huge amount of views, Yeah,
and those views aren't even monetized, are they? No,
they're not.
So if this is being financed some other way, this is being funded in some other way that we don't know.
Yeah. And so, you have the white hair, the anime aspect of it. This whole process, I mean, I would say that, again, what we really see in a certain way is it's gone. I would say that it's kind of gone beyond just the cybernetics, probably familiar with that, cybernetic systems, right? This is an approach, scientific approach, but also applied to human behavior, human cognition, creating basically a type of network of, responses, conditioned responses, although not necessarily, right? Even with hypnosis, right? You can use it to, eradicate conditioned responses. But anyway, so the cybernetic or the psychocybernetic manipulation, is really now moving towards this demonic induction and sort of a voluntary type of demonic induction, right? And a lot of these music videos now, a whole array of artists, everyone from Eminem on, they show themselves as being mind controlled, MK Ultra mind controlled slaves, and then doing this and that, or showing their initiatory process, or doing this and that. And it's just rampant. I mean, on just an extreme level, right? So, there's an aspect, I think, on one level, I mean, there definitely is a spiritual aspect to this, because otherwise it doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of why all this effort is being put into these type of things. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive to produce those kind of videos they're producing. You know, it's not the makeup alone and the hair, you know, alone and the costumes alone before you get into equipment and time, studio time and all that, and visuals and graphics. It's not inexpensive. And how's it being funded? You know, we don't know at all. You know, it's interesting too. You mentioned how the metronome. Did you know that the first commercial that they showed on commercial TV after the live coverage of the day of the Kennedy assassination, because they went commercial free for so long, the first commercial they showed started off as a metronome, clicking back and forth. And then I forget what they were selling, what the product was, but that's how it began. And the metronome went on for quite a few seconds. It was a close-up of the metronome, back and forth, click, 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 click. And then, yeah. You know?
I did not know that, but it really links into that, right? I mean, because, you know, this was used, you know, initially, the use of these types of rhythmic stimulation, right, on dogs, but even on actual children, which they were able to do in the former Soviet Union. But so these induction of a particular, you know, metronomic time, they found that even particular, beats per minute, right? So, everyone's familiar with the basic Pavlov's basic experiment, which was that of, you know, the ringing the bell and the dog salivate.
Right.
But he did a lot more than that. I mean, that's just kind of the beginning, right? And so he even looked at dogs and analyzed dogs, and then later human beings based on their receptivity, their types of, quote unquote personality patterns, or the resistance of their own physiology to these conditioned response patterns. But his book, let's see if I can remember the name here. Okay, well, transmarginal protective inhibition. That's one of the things he talked about, is transmarginal. The name of the book will come to me, or I could probably look it up. Okay. A post-operative cardiac neuroses analyzed by the patient. So post-operative cardiac neuroses. So this is where Pavlov started to get into the idea of inducing neurotic patterns, right? Creating contradictory signals or sensory inputs, which creates what's known as the transmarginal. Which is basically where the brain itself, you have the excitatory or attracted, or the inhibitory where, you know, you're repressing something and they sort of clash, and then they create this whole new type of phenomena, which he actually made dogs schizophrenic through and what this was done, both with metronomes, the use of particular metronomic beats, and flashing lights. So basic experiment was the flashing light came, and then, you know, every time the flashing light came, the dog got food, right? And then what happened was there was an alteration of the rhythm of the flashing light, or the flashing light came, the dogs didn't get food, et cetera, et cetera. And so then what happened was, it's not just the bell rings, the bell doesn't ring, right? Which is kind of an A/B response. You know, you know what I mean? You get your basic thing, your stimulus, and your response. But by manipulating the stimulus in various ways, and in creating these patterns where, you know, the light flashes, or you get food and the light doesn't flash, and this and that, then it creates this sort of inner conflict, or inner neuroses, which eventually resulted in, described as a total mental breakdown or schizophrenia. And with the use of the metronomes, right? So 120 beats per minute, which is, you know, then 60 beats per minute, 120 beats per minute was food, and 60 beats per minute was not food. But eventually it reached the point where you could have the food in front of the dog, and because of the condition of that metronome, the dog would not eat, and dogs would actually starve to death because of the depth of that conditioning. Even though they were hungry, they didn't eat. So that shows the potency of these kinds of things. They're not just, you know, where you have, a dog, we all know and love dogs, but imagine a dog not eating when it's hungry. Well, and just by a metronome click. Well, that was one of the accomplishments of Pavlov.
Yeah, you mentioned the power of the flashing light, the strobe light. Even when, if you take a video of a TV set, and somehow it picks up the flashing light of the video monitor, which you don't catch with the naked eye. But when you video a video set and a TV set, video screen, you'll catch it. What other ways are we being manipulated and hypnotized without realizing or being affected by these different kind of techniques, metronomes and kind of things?
Well, okay, so we have to, kind of break this down a little bit, right? For example, you have a class of drugs known as hypnotics, right? Which are drugs. You take that drug, and it's going to induce a certain type of state. I mean, not necessarily hypnosis, but, you'll have an effect from a physical substance or a physical agent. You look at infrasound, which is sound below the auditory threshold, right? But it's sound that actually operates directly on the central nervous system. So you can induce mass terror, you can induce, defecation and urination, you can induce death, heart attack, because these frequencies are actually operating on the same frequencies as the entire brain operates on, right? And again, these are inaudible. So you have like elephants to do that. So that's one level. Then you have the symbolic or associative conditioning, which is that you like a bell is just a bell, but then if it becomes associated or linked with that, then you have that as a conditioning response or a trigger. And then you have the quote unquote symbolic level, which are, you have, like, say, you have the sign of the cross, you have some kind of a demonic or a sigil, or you have some other type of image, or even an image, a violent image, wherever that may be. So there's also another level where the symbols and what Carl Jung termed the collective unconscious, these things have resonance or effects on people, right? So you break that down to 3 levels, right? So when you talk about the television set, flickering light, you have certain frequencies or flicker responses, right? That actually induce hypnotic states. And that's just because of they're working on the actual perceptual mechanism of the brain. It's the process called entrainment, which basically creates a rhythm or some type of stimuli. Your brain entrains, or basically means it locks onto that rhythm, right? So there's certain things that have actual physiological responses, right, that are there. So the idea of the light flicker, it's not an idea. I mean, it's called photic driving, and you can create different type of strobic patterns that will induce trance, induce hallucination, et cetera, right? So these are all elements of that, right? So you have this induction of sort of a hypnotic state just by the flicker rate and the flicker patterns of the television set, and then you have all these other arrays of things that are being done, even like flash cuts, even the timing of cuts when you cut between scene to scene, you can have different flickering rates. And this is all, a lot of this, 99% is purely perceived by the subconscious because, hey, I'm relaxing, I'm being entertained, I don't have any defenses up. So even, any kind of discomfort is sort of pushed to the threshold because your attention is focused on the entertainment, and you're not in a position of really being aware of what's going on. So, again, just to summarize, I mean, you have to look at these different levels, and they all occur. But I think that the use of flickering lights or types of sound waves and things like that is sort of a baseline, right? And then from that, a conditioned response pattern can be built, again, really with any type of stimuli. But when it's being induced, whether through cranial stimulation or through electromagnetic frequency waves, that's something that's actually, that's a that's like something that's physically attacking your actual being. And a lot of times, again, people aren't aware of it, or, in the case of, really an intense thing going on, a lot of times people will think that there's something wrong with them. If you're aware of what's happening, then that's a different degree. But, still there's going to be some kind of latent effect, just because it's like, again, as I mentioned, if you take a type of drug, it's probably going to have some kind of effect on your nervous system. Or,
right, if they're pumping us full of fluoride and stuff, that kind of helps the process along as well. Now, what about you? Do you watch TV and go to the movies?
Every day I'm about ready to turn on my TV. No, I haven't had TV for quite a long time. I watch television mostly in hotel rooms when I'm traveling, and most of the time I just flip through channels and just waste. So I don't watch a lot of TV. I mean, I watch Netflix, stuff like that. But even in that, there's a lot of stuff going on too. In terms of these things. And then this, again, we cannot, de-emphasize the social conditioning aspect that's going on too, right? So in terms of habit formation, with or without hypnosis, another factor is just group conditioning, right? Group response. You want to be part of the herd. You want to be accepted. So whether you're hanging out with friends and they're all drinking or doing whatever they're doing, and you're going to kind of just join with them, because it becomes less tension. And so that's so by watching types of behavior on television, et cetera, you're gonna want to join those. So to be honest, like I said, mostly when I watch stuff, I mean, there's not a lot of things I can enjoy if they're full of these types of programming messages. So, I mean, I do find things, but yeah, I rarely watch television. So it's pretty much weaned off of it.
Yeah. And what about the news? You watch the news?
Like CNN and things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, occasionally. I prefer to get my information with text and print. And that's a great example too to bring up, because you look at like CNN or any of these news things, you have flashing lights, you have repetitive things, you have occasional placement of even some of these kind of sigils and things like that within their presentation. Have these little things flashing in the background, right? You watch like whatever, Fox News, CNN, and this and that. I mean, you have these kind of high-tech displays, but notice you have all these little things going around in the background, right? Yeah. And you don't even watch those. And you think, well, I mean, for me, like initially, I've done some video work. It's like, well, that's professional production. You need these kind of little things going on in the background, but that's totally perceived subconsciously, right? So the news itself, no, I don't really necessarily watch news, and that's part of why I don't per se, is that, but I'm not, again, it depends on what you define by that. But I just, to be honest, it was almost like with me in the Las Vegas thing. I just kind of, at a certain point, I just kind of dropped it because I don't know. I just didn't feel that
it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy for our minds. Yeah. Yeah, and also, so like on CNN, they have that scroll at the bottom constantly going, you're listening to one story, and then they got another little scroll at the bottom, a headline going by, just totally information overload. Let's take a little commercial break here with Hans Utter, hansutter.com. Check out his radio show coming up, Steampunk. That's steampunk.com, it's called?
It's actually to the Steam It platform, which is a...
okay.
If you're familiar with that, but yeah, it's Steampunk Radio. Yeah, that's I think the broadcasting thing is a separate entity, but yeah, it's connected. At least the person that invited me on that network was part of the Steam It community. Yeah.
The show's called Eyes Wide Open, 5 to 7 p.m.
And now a word from our sponsors.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing you narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also awakeradio.us.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap! I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Hans Utter, Utter, HansUtter.com. You can check out his website. That's where you can buy his many albums and CDs and his book. And also to check out his radio show, Eyes Wide Open, on Sunday nights, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Hey, Hans, how about these iPhones? You got people right now walking around in a complete daze and completely consumed, staring at their iPhone all the time. What do you make of that?
Well, I think this is all part of this evolution, right, of all these things. I mean, I was like the Pokemon Go phenomenon.
Right.
I was traveling around and I was in various cities and I saw all these people just walking around in dazed. It was something out of a horror movie. They're all looking at their phones, moving around, right? But That's, the whole, loss of connection with actual physical experience and the utilization of a medium, right? A device. And it's just like the social network. It's great. You and I are probably, a little bit, we didn't grow up, say, with, social media, but, imagine kids that have grown up. I mean, that's their world. You have 3-year-old kids playing on iPads, right? So the screen itself becomes reality. And that's, again, going back to the Poppy phenomenon. That way, whether she's a, very adept performance artist, which, some critics say that she's this great commentator on the whole social media culture. The fact is that this is just a separation. Again, these are useful tools, but on the other hand, if your whole life, you're glued to this phone, I mean, you've probably been with people, right? They can't even talk to you because they're so busy sending messages and stuff. It's not only annoying, it just shows it's another disruption of consciousness. Like you mentioned, the CNN, where you've got the ticker tape, you've got flickering lights, and you've got the story. And so that also creates this hypnotic state where, your mind, your attention is sort of directed elsewhere.
Yeah, so when you hire somebody to come in and do some work for you and they're staring at their phone the whole time, they're doing a job interview, it's like, it's just beyond belief. Yeah, I'll tell you something else too, because we were talking about the TV, but the movie theater too. The movie theater is almost like a cathedral to begin with, especially the old fashioned movie theaters, and I used to do these jobs where, the studios would hire us to go in and you'd count the people in the audience. And then at the end of the night, you'd go to the box office, and say, give me the manager, and they'd show you the receipts, and you have to match up the numbers, because they do all these shenanigans with selling the tickets. They don't have to pay the box office, the movie studios. And you'd watch, and then you'd have to write down the people's reactions to the trailers. And you watch these people when the light hits their faces, they're just totally hypnotized by what's on the screen. And even the anticipation before the first trailers start, it's almost like a religious, it's like a religious experience, almost in the dark there with the big music, and the lights. It's a whole, that can't be by accident.
Well, you have the opera house and you have all these things. I mean, this idea of showmanship, right? The presentation, but what you have is you have a vacuum created when you remove sort of the core values of a society, right? When you remove a moral code that's based, both in an individual and on, potentially a belief, a higher belief, then you have a huge vacuum. And A, people want this, but B, if you can sort of manipulate that experience, right, you create a way where people, what would normally say in a couple of years ago, whatever would have been a certain type of sanctified space, you fill that need because that's destroyed or been turned into an object of social derision or this or that, and then you invoke that. I mean, example, look at this 1960s. You have like the Grateful Dead, and then they have the Family. So you have this idea of completely revolting against your father and your mother and this and that and the whole, square society. And then you join the Family. Well, then you're riding around on a bus, selling it, taking LSD or whatever. And then you're part of this new family or community. But notice that there's been a lack created. There's been a removal, right, of a former, structure, and then it's replaced. But you're still taking those same, impulses, but they're redirected and they're controlled.
Can you give us other examples how that's? Yeah, I totally agree with you. They've taken faith in God and religion from us and replaced it with entertainment in many ways. And you're right, the family's been replaced too as well. The father figure's been destroyed. Can you give us any other examples how we're being manipulated?
Well, I mean, there's lots of them. I mean, just look at the whole star culture, the culture of celebrity.
Right.
These people are worshipped. These people are seen as, even the idea of stars, right? I think actually it was Aleister Crowley said, "You're all stars," right? So, these people are who knows what they are. Half the time, especially, you know, in the modern era, they really don't have any real accomplishments. They may or may not be decent actors. I mean, I'll give one example, like James Dean. Let's be honest, he sucks. He's not a good actor, really. I mean, if you watch his movies again without the, you know, he's really not a good actor, but yet he's become this sort of deified persona. How about the term rock gods, right? The rock gods. So all of these things are placed up above us as opposed to, you know, localized authority figures who, in a sense, as long as they're not corrupted, right, should be transmitting the culture. Your father, you may be pissed at your father, but maybe when he disciplines you, it's going to teach you what you need to do. Now, you're not going to worship your father as God, but at the same time, your father is representing all those generations and everything that's built up to allow you to be there. So I think it's absolutely pervasive in terms of, and then you look at the other side of it is a mockery, right, of sincerity, of belief, of faith, of qualities that I believe are positive qualities. And then you have for example, Wolf of Wall Street, right? And there's so many movies like this where, or even Dexter, you have all these different TV shows where these psychopathic characters are now being promoted as ideals, right? And, you know, I say I can go on, but, you know, what you do is you start with a breakdown. You say that these traditional systems, the church or whatever, maybe not that physical church, but the church as a body, as a living body, whatever, means nothing. And so you just disallow it, but yet that need is still there inside of you. And then other things will come in without you necessarily thinking that, okay, I'm replacing, you know, my religious impulses with worship of Led Zeppelin. But to a certain extent, that's kind of what's going on, because the idea of this even being important has been mocked, right? It's been, or else it's analyzed critically through rationality. And then what happens, which kind of what I wanted to get to, is the deeper aspect is this sort of initiatory process, right? Where you start to surrender or accept certain things, which moves more and more towards sort of an initiatory process. And I'll stop there.
What do you mean an initiatory process? Exactly what?
Well, I mean, when, for example, if you're joining, some type of, a cult organization or anything like that, there's usually a process of initiation, right, which involves a certain type of ritual. But what it involves is accepting the potency or power of a particular entity or even a lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. So even you look at hip hop. Let's look at hip hop as an initiatory process. Well, as you watch these videos or you play the video game Grand Theft Auto, not audio, right? So as you know, initially, like, I have to go out and kill people, or this song they're singing about, about murdering women and doing this, but I think it's cool and everyone else is listening to it. So that's like the first stage, is where your inhibition, or on a hypnotic level, is the inhibitory process. You say, well, this is okay, and then you have the effect of that media or whatever it is, coming over you, whether it's a mass event where everyone's dancing and screaming and, it's your adrenaline is going, so you have that whole aspect. But as it goes on deeper and deeper, you can even see this in films and things like that, and in behavior, right? Where things that would never have been acceptable even 20 years ago are now just mainstream. And this, like I said, I want to overcomplicate it, but just an example is these, whatever my TV experience is usually based on, these Netflix or streaming things or whatever, maybe Amazon. But I notice these shows now, you have even, girls, 13-year-old girl with her dad, and they're using the F word like every other sentence. And so that's like an initiatory practice, because you're like, well, is that okay? No. But what I mean by initiation is there are actual types of, ceremonies, right? These are, invocation ceremonies, or, which are done. And in a certain way, people are sort of involuntarily, yet voluntarily participating in them.
Right.
like I said, I can go deeper with it. You may not be the place to do that, but I think that that's kind of what's going on in terms of even the evolution of the popular culture at this time.
So that somehow, some way, these satanic devil worshippers, and for lack of a better term, have taken over the media and entertainment and even the news into some areas, because otherwise this would be reported on the news. Hey, look what's happening, right? And they're using subtle hypnosis and mind control and indoctrination, slowly, either unwittingly or wittingly, luring us into doing their rituals and their occult ceremonies.
Yeah, exactly. And part of this is even the focus of attention, right? Let's look at Jack the Ripper and look at the Zodiac Killer. In both of these cases, you have these murders, but you also have these letters being sent to the newspapers, right? So it's very interesting. Like the Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac Killer were, and then Son of Sam.
Son of Sam, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. And so these are, so then you have, these things are going on. And the fact is that it's kind of like silence, means yes, right? There's a certain thing if and I don't know, I think all of us have been in certain situations where you have that little part in the back of your mind, like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be doing this. Right. And it may be really small. It may be just a minor part of your experience. But if you go ahead with that, and there are certain stages where you cross too far into it, you can't come back. But let's be honest. On the other hand, there's a tremendous amount of power to be obtained. And that's what's being promulgated in all these music videos. And Poppy, like I said, is sort of a meta phenomena on that, which makes it a very interesting thing. But all these music videos and this and that, I mean, you see that these people are, they literally show it. That I've chosen to embrace this path of darkness, and look how much power I have. And so this, it induces that, but again, there still is that element of individual choice, and yet there is this. What I think, I mean, again, I'm going a little bit ahead of, you could say, well, you're not have a factual basis, but I mean, my intuition and what I'm seeing is unfolding is sort of this, larger and larger scale, moving just from mere hypnosis to actual, acceptance, and eventually I would say, actual, sort of what do you call it, demonic, or, these sort of, these other types of entities to take home in people's bodies. Because I think the idea of being possessed is being made cool. Even Poppy sort of makes being mind controlled cool. Right. And it's, like I said, it's very, very endemic, and it's again, you have to look at things on various levels and how they're affecting people. But I think that there is an aspect of a mass type of ritualistic process where all these events, things are interconnected. And even now, even the falsity of events, and, the whole Poppy thing just could be, who knows, right? But on the other hand, what I wanted to call attention to is, yes, there are some actual hypnotic things being done that are going to have, if you're not aware of it, are going to have some effect on your mind or spirit, whatever, if you're not aware of it. But, fundamentally, it's just that this people not only have lost the critical faculties, but they've just, they're not even aware what's missing, right? Or else how many people just embrace this stuff and say, this is great. This is where the power is.
Right. Because they're so young, they don't know any different. They don't know what it was like 30, 40 years ago. Father knows best, when things were kind of normal, and there was like a baseline of normalcy and right and wrong in this country. Hans, we're out of time. We're out of time, man. I tell you, we went all covered many areas, greater than I thought we could have. Thank you so much. Why don't you tell the audience again how they could, well, first, sum up what you want to leave us with, and then tell the audience how they could find you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in summary, I just want to say that, that Poppy is important just because of not only as a commentary on what's going on, but also as a symptom of this very extreme, stage, I think that's kind of going on. But in terms of mind control, et cetera, I mean, I would say that what's going on is a mass deployment of traumatic mind control processes. And so you have, you're looking at a certain way, the MK Ultra type of programming being deployed on a mass population through various means. And I think that this sort of like the original founders of the intelligence community, like John Dee, who was very much involved in occultic practices, I think it's now going more towards that at a certain level. So but ultimately, like I said, just the awareness of it is very important. And all these hypnotic visual response patterns, they can be broken. And so, but part of it is just, having that level of grounding to know when they're operational, and also not to get lost in things that are set up in terms of even, like, say, researching it. Right. Not that you shouldn't research it, but that itself can be a trap. And that's another level, right, of this operation. So basically, though, my website, hansutter.com. I have another website, musicmindcontrol.wordpress.com. And I have some stuff on Steemit, we've already mentioned the radio show, Eyes Wide Open. And basically, I'm kind of doing my thing here in a lot of different levels. But I definitely appreciate any support from the audience, and I definitely want to get out, a little bit more detailed material based on this stuff, because in a sort of a talk or lecture format, some of the depth I think can be better understood in even a text format. So, but I really appreciate, Ed, for the chance to come on your show. And I was thinking about becoming a private investigator, so I think I better buy your book.
If you want a life of misery, go right ahead. Hey, how about Twitter and Facebook? You on Twitter?
No, I'm not. I'm a little bit social media. I'm not averse, but I'm not on Twitter, but I am on Facebook. So you can just look me up on Facebook and you'll see my picture, and that's me. I don't think there's anyone else with the same name on Facebook. But are you on Twitter, Ed? I thought about doing that. I have not gotten around to it.
It has its ups and downs. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. There's an Opperman Report on Twitter. Hans Utter, thank you so much. HansUtter.com. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ed, and wish you and your audience all the best.
Good night. Okay, I think we really went deeper into Poppy than I could have hoped for. I had booked another guest too to come on, and I'm still going to record with him because he has a different perspective. But really, it's the more I listen to Hans Utter, it's true. There's no way this could be an accident. There's no way this could be harmless. And with the hypnosis factor involved, it's and once you think it's harmless, once you think it's a joke, you let that stuff get in. Listen, if you like today's show, check out OppermanReport.com. That's where we have our members section, where there's exclusive content, there's exclusive shows, there's additional shows, and I think we have a show in there about mind control and hypnosis again, as well with Neil Sanders, who's another one very well up on this topic. If you want to get a discount in the members section, you can contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com, and I'll give you 13 months for $60. Okay, we do it via PayPal. You email me, I send you PayPal money across, and then I set you up. We don't go through TinyPass. They don't get their cut, and so I keep a little bit more of the money, so I can give you a discount. 13 months for $60. Just updated some new content on there. We did an interview with Chris Fields, who was the first responder at the Oklahoma City bombing. I did an hour with him. Oh. That's Hans calling back. And then we did there's no way to stop that either. And then we did a show with Sherry Wisdom, who I recorded with just the other day, and we talk about Stormy Daniels, we talk about Pizzagate, and we also talk about how I'm discouraged with the alternative media and some of the nonsense out there and disinformation that's coming out in alternative media. And we get into some specific instances where we both have dealt with certain hosts and radio stations and stuff like that, where we know for a fact that these people are just peddling a bunch of crap and BS. We're very graphic in our language as we did it. So that's in the member section as well. And I'm going to be doing a show coming up about Tim Nolan, who is the ex-judge and Trump campaign manager there, who was just convicted for sex trafficking. And a lot of people are promoting misinformation about him. Oh, he's just like Jeffrey Epstein. He's one of his elites. It's really not. It's a much lower local operation there, but still in many ways more disgusting than Epstein ever was. Because this guy was taking advantage of people who were heroin addicts and on probation and parole, and children, and their whole families, and threatening eviction, much more depraved than Epstein ever was. But on a much lower local scale. And he's definitely connected to the Trump campaign, because I found some defamation lawsuits where he himself describes himself as being involved in the campaign. So that's all going up in the member section.